The events take their origin in the lottery center. As soon as the guy entered the building through the door, the employees immediately recognized him and congratulated Mr. Fan again on his big lottery win. The guy won 10 million and the employee handed him the check, but the look on the guy's face scared him. As it turned out, this was the fourth time the guy had won the top prize in the lottery. The lottery center employee asked the guy not to wear such a scary mask anymore when he comes to collect his prize, because the guy scares people. Fan apologized to the employee and then said that it's all because of the process of accumulating luck. He notices that if he is unlucky, other people will become unlucky too. Thanks to the mask, the guy could feel safe. After picking up his check, the guy left the lottery center. After walking a little bit away from the lottery center, the guy took off his mask, which was scaring the others. The guy's name is Fan Xiao, and thanks to his ability, he can accumulate his luck. If he can accumulate a lot of luck, he might get lucky 100% of the time if he can harness all the luck at once. Because of his ability, he was able to win the lottery 4 times and gain financial freedom. In order to win the last lottery, he had to accumulate luck for a month. The price of winning was constant encounters with pickpockets, thieves, human traffickers, and car accidents throughout the month. Accumulating luck for an entire month resulted in a huge amount of bad luck. He wondered what would happen if he accumulated luck for 2 months. 2 months later, the guy was jogging in the park, exercising his body. Just at that moment, someone incredibly hungry was already watching him from the bushes. The man could no longer contain his hunger and tried to pounce on Fan Xiao to eat him. The guy immediately realized that it was one of the evolved in front of him. Lately, he had guessed that a setback was about to befall him, but he didn't realize that it would be this big. However, the guy was prepared for the failure to catch him off guard, so he pulled out a pepper spray and sprayed the attacking man in the face with it. Even the hungry man could not resist the pepper spray. His eyes immediately glazed over and he fell to the ground screaming in pain. Fan Xiao then took out the rope he had and tied the man up. He then immediately called the emergency line, reporting the attack. In the evening at the police station, the officer was making a report on Fan Xiao. The officer had seen the guy so often recently that he asked the guy how many times he had already been to the police station. As a law-abiding citizen, Fan Xiao confessed that so far he had managed to neutralize 47 criminals and write 112 reports. The officer was already even amused at the fact that the guy was having a lot of bad luck. He was sorry that with his talent for catching criminals, the guy never became a policeman. Then the officer still asked what kind of criminal the guy had caught this time. Fan Xiao immediately recalled the articles he had come across on the internet. The articles talked about how a girl went crazy and attacked an 80-year-old man. There was also an article about mass attacks on people and other articles. Fan Xiao admitted to the officer that the man who attacked him was very similar to the evolved that were talked about on the internet. The officer just exhaled tiredly and asked the guy not to talk nonsense, because evolved didn't exist, and everything written on the internet was just rumors. Fan Xiao decided not to continue the topic and agreed with the officer's opinion. However, in his mind, Fan Xiao understood the officer's opinion, and he wouldn't have believed in evolved either if he wasn't one of them. Returning home from the police station, the guy noticed that after accumulating luck for 2 months, he was attacked by evolved. If it wasn't for his vast experience, he could have easily gotten hit by a car. More than a month ago, several people had mutations in their bodies. Their food intake increased greatly, and their physical fitness increased dramatically. At the same time, they developed a strong desire to hunt all kinds of animals. People with such mutations became known as evolved. A husky dog happily ran up to the guy. However, in an instant, the dog was incredibly frightened by the guy's gaze. After all, at this moment, Fan Xiao felt that Uncle Li's husky dog was incredibly appetizing. He was incredibly hungry as he looked at the dog. However, he brushed aside the instinct that had arisen and tried his best to contain his hunger. Sitting at home on the couch behind his laptop, the guy recounted the problems of his current life. After becoming evolved, no matter how much regular food he ate, he could never completely get rid of the feeling of hunger that arose deep in his heart. He always felt like hunting living creatures. Opening his browser, he tried to search for information about evolved, but it turned out that all information related to evolved had been deleted. Kaneki Ken was well aware that perhaps indulging his appetite would soon lead to having to hunt humans. He didn't want to become a monster that would devour people. Holding the luck that he had managed to accumulate in 2 months, he was counting on that very luck to help him find a solution to the problem. As soon as he squeezed his luck in his hand in an attempt to use it, then suddenly all that luck formed an unfamiliar vortex to him. In the same instant, it was as if a system window appeared in front of him, on which he saw that the so-called system had detected evolved. The system congratulated the guy for being selected as a beta player for the game Evolution, which was developed by Ninth Dimension Corporation. The game was aimed at promoting the evolution of humanity, and the corporation was eager to see the guy's success on this path. The process of determining the path of evolution then began. The system picked the 3 most suitable playable classes for the guy, from which he had to choose only one. The 3 classes to choose from were Star of Bad Luck, Dark Knight, and Assassin. The system noted that the class determines the development of a guy's talent, so the game class had to be chosen wisely. Luck favored the guy and the decision found itself. The Star of Bad Luck class didn't appeal to him as it led to failure. The Dark Knight class looked too ridiculous for him. Not finding any other options, the guy decided to choose the Assassin class. The system immediately congratulated the guy on getting the Assassin game class. As a beta player, the guy had a chance to develop his talent, so the system asked the guy if he wanted to do it now. The system noted that although the talent was an extension of the class, from the lowest E rank to the highest A rank, there were hundreds of amazing ones that couldn't be counted. The system asked the player not to worry about getting the same talent as another player. In addition, the system asked the player to remember that luck was also part of a guy's strength. Fan Xiao rejoiced that luck was also part of his strength because he had just been saving up his luck for 2 months. The guy folded his hands in prayer while waiting for the talent given to him, hoping that he would get the best talent. Finally, the system informed him that he had received an A-rank talent. Angel of Slaughter, incomplete. The system decided to tell Fan Xiao that humans had both 7 virtues and 7 deadly sins. Since spiritual life is born out of negative emotions, Angel of Slaughter uses the 7 original sins as weapons to bury his enemies in a vortex of destruction. Right now, the Angel of Slaughter had 3 original sins awakened: lust, pride, and sloth. Lust. Angel of Slaughter takes shape based on a guy's lust. Angel of Slaughter's resilience is tied to the mental power of the guy. Even if Angel of Slaughter is destroyed, it can be rebuilt with the help of the guy's mental energy. Pride. The arrogance of the guy will give Angel of Slaughter the ability to remain invisible and immune. Sloth. Angel of Slaughter is too sloth to walk, as he prefers to fly or teleport. Currently, Angel of Slaughter can only move a maximum of 10 meters away from a guy. The summoning time is 30 seconds and the cooldown is 24 hours. After reading the talent description, Fan Xiao decided that he should consider the talent he received as a summoning talent. With negative emotions, he could summon Angel of Slaughter, who possessed the 7 original sins. Unfortunately, only 3 original sins were available to him right now, so he could use Angel of Slaughter as an invisible bodyguard that could teleport. His eyes twinkled with the upcoming benefits. After all, he had been accumulating his luck for 2 months, which meant he should become quite powerful. The system also informed that Fan Xiao, as a beta player, must participate in a qualifying dungeon and pass the game dungeon evaluation before he could become an official player. The system didn't give him much time to think, as it immediately started counting down from 10 seconds to 0. Before he could realize anything, he changed his nickname from Fan Xiao to Seal, which opened the selection section. At the same moment, he was teleported away. Soon, he appeared in a place that was unfamiliar to him. Weibei City had once been a thriving city, but a mutation had destroyed it and turned it into an abandoned lost city. As a result of the events that took place in the unruly city, a lot of monsters have settled in, always ready to organize a bloody feast to welcome tourists who came from far away. The sanctuary is the only place where the player can take shelter for the night. From 7:30 a.m. to 6:30 p.m., the monsters sleep, so the system asks players not to make any noise, as it is very dangerous to wake them up. In addition, the dungeon boss refuses to let the tourists go. The dungeon task was to find the space-time door, G080110A1, then enter this door to complete the official player registration. Sitting on the ground, the guy tried to understand the situation he was in. He immediately noticed that the bag of self-defense tools had not been sent to the dungeon with him. Based on the information he received, he decided that the game was doing this for balance, as some of the players might show up with a rocket launcher, making the others unable to play. Looking around, he noticed a man in a suit and a guy talking nearby. The man noted that they seemed to be able to get the clues to the game. Fan Xiao categorized them as executive and college student at a glance. Executive reported that his player panel showed that he was participating in a dungeon selection. His assignment was to find the space-time door. He asked the college student if they had everything coming together on the assignment. The happy guy confirmed the executive's assumption. Looking in the other direction, Fan Xiao found 3 more beta players. Fan Xiao described them as a hooded guy, a middle-aged man, and a frail woman. The woman was clearly not dressed for going to the dungeon. She refused to believe that everything was real and thought that everything around her was just a dream. Also in the dungeon were high school students, 2 sisters. The younger sister did not understand what they should do now. The older sister tried to calm her down with the fact that she was next to her. Meanwhile, a middle-aged man was not wasting time and had already approached the frail woman and asked her not to worry because he would protect her. The woman was very frightened and asked the man not to approach her. Because of her fear, she backed up and fell down. The man immediately started drooling, looking at the girl. However, at that moment, the hooded guy intervened, asking the man to focus on the dungeon task at hand. The man started making excuses that he was mistaken for the wrong person, he just wanted to help the woman. He even asked the hooded guy to stay out of his business and not to touch him. The older sister noticed that there was a time clue in the bottom right corner of the game panel, and it was now 7:38 a.m., so they could leave the shelter. The hooded guy was wary, reminding the others that monsters didn't hibernate until 7 hours and 30 minutes in the morning, so he thought the best option would be to wait until 8 hours and only then go outside. The fragile girl was quite scared, asking him not to go out until 9 a.m. because it would be safer then. Fan Xiao, who was standing to the side before, approached them, suggesting that it was better not to waste time at all. He pointed out that there was no time limit specified in the task, which meant that there was probably something behind it. He reminded the others that they were in an abandoned lost city, so the opportunities to get food were incredibly low. Without supplies, their energy would start to gradually decrease. In addition, finding the space-time door might require a large amount of work. Therefore, Fan Xiao felt that their time was limited. The frail woman noticed that the guy's words made sense. She now realized that the difficulty of the game had increased significantly. The executive quickly agreed with Fan Xiao's opinion. He too felt that he shouldn't ignore the problem of food shortage and rather hurry up and start acting. Looking at one of the sisters, Fan Xiao noticed that there must be something special about the doll in the girl's hands. Since the doll had also been transported to the dungeon, it was even possible that the doll was an object. Looking at the backs of the people who had gotten into the dungeon with him, he couldn't put aside the thought that there might be evolved eating people among the 7 people. The hooded guy and the executive, who hid their distinctive features, were the ones who aroused Fan Xiao's greatest suspicion. When they came out of the hideout, they discovered a giant city with high-rise buildings. There were skulls and bones lying on the pavement all over the city. The executive frustratedly remarked that the area of the city was not small. Even if they used a systematic search, it would take a huge amount of time to search. A college student pointed out that Weibei is similar in style to cities on Earth, so there must be a train station in the city, and perhaps the space-time door they need to find is there. So the college student suggested that they go to the train station first and try their luck there. The executive was surprised that the college student believed in his theory so strongly, even though they didn't even know where the train station was in this city. Only now did the college student realize that there were flaws in his plan. Executive immediately paid attention to Fan Xiao after he voiced his opinion in the shelter. He immediately noticed that Fan Xiao's thinking was advanced and that his opinion could not be ignored. He approached Fan Xiao and inquired about the guy's name. After learning that the guy's name was Fan Jiangqiang, he asked him where they should go next. Fan Xiao had already thought it over, deciding that they needed a map first. Maps were usually located in the subway. The map at the entrance of the subway often had a part of the neighborhood on it. The hooded guy noticed that the map of each subway entrance and exit covered a very small area, and it would be too difficult to map the entire city piece by piece. However, Fan Xiao had an answer to this complaint as well, because they don't necessarily need to map the city piece by piece, because they just need to know how to get to certain places. The executive agreed to this plan since they had no other options. The college student was enthusiastic and immediately decided to go there. A middle-aged man approached the high school girls and asked them to follow him as he would protect them, but the older sister had nothing but contempt for the man and told him to move away from them. Half an hour later, they managed to find the entrance to the subway. Looking inside without going down into the subway, they noticed that it was incredibly dark. Besides, they didn't encounter any monsters outside, so perhaps they were hiding downstairs. Fan Xiao took out matches and lit one. Executive didn't understand where the guy found everything he needed. Fan Xiao only noticed that he had picked up everything while they were walking. Suddenly, a torch appeared in the guy's hand, which he lit. However, in the same second, the executive told the guy not to go downstairs yet. The executive heard from the breath emitted from the subway that there were 4 monsters downstairs. The college student was all ablaze with enthusiasm, noting that executive must have the talent of sharp hearing. Executive didn't realize what talent the college student was telling him about. The college student was surprised that the executive didn't know about the talents because he thought that every beta player was given talents to develop. Executive was surprised that everyone else had talents. Fan Xiao, who wasn't paying attention to the talent talk, asked what kind of animals Executive was hunting. Executive didn't deny and admitted that, like everyone else knew, Evolved had a strong desire for hunting. He had put up with it for 2 weeks and was literally at his limit, so he bought a dog. Taking off his hat, the executive admitted that after the so-called hunt, he gained the hearing and sense of smell of a dog. He even grew dog ears on his head. The college student was thrilled to see Executive's dog ears. He was also happy that he was lucky because he couldn't tolerate more than 4 days, but on the 4th day he became a beta player and his hunger was greatly reduced. The college student was too positive. He even decided that the hunger problem would disappear as soon as he became a player. Fan Xiao approached the executive to inquire about what it was like for him to eat a dog. The executive couldn't understand why Fan Xiao was asking him that. Fan Xiao decided to press the man, walked closer to him, and asked him if he had accidentally tasted human meat while trying to satisfy his appetite. The executive recoiled, frightened from him. He couldn't find words after what he had heard. He didn't understand how the guy could even come up with such a wild thought. Fan Xiao decided that the man was not lying to him, unless he was a great actor who could easily mislead him. The guy decided to put it down to a joke, but he also pointed out that humans were also animals, so perhaps there were cannibals among the evolved. The college student admitted that the guy scared him, because he thought there was actually a cannibal among them. The hooded guy asked the others to stop fooling around because they had to move on and go down to the subway. The frail woman was afraid to go to the subway because there were monsters there. Fan Xiao remarks that they should continue as there was not much point in them looking for another place. After exploring the surface for so long, they didn't notice any monsters, but 4 monsters appeared in the subway at once. If monsters made a habit of avoiding the sun and hibernating in the shadows, then the number of monsters in the subway should have been significant. Executive was in agreement with Fan Xiao, thinking that they would have to go down to the subway after all. However, the woman was too scared, so her legs wouldn't obey her and she fell down. She was afraid to go down to the subway. The middle-aged man also didn't understand why they should go where the monsters were. The hooded guy asked them to keep their voices down. He suggested they try to enter the other entrance leading to the subway. The college student thought it was a brilliant idea because maybe the other entrance didn't have monsters. However, Fan Xiao decided not to listen to them, starting his descent into the subway. He assumed that if he encountered danger in the subway, he would try out his A-rank talent in battle. After he started to descend into the subway, sisters and executive caught up with him. They decided to go along with him. Elder sister wanted to personally confirm the existence of the map. Fan Xiao was fine with this decision, even praising the girl. He informed the others that he had a good memory, so once they found the map, he would memorize the map and give it to them. The younger sister was startled when she saw the monster in front of them. Because of her screaming, the others also looked at the monster. However, as indicated, the monster was sleeping, so they tried not to make much noise so as not to wake up the monster. After finding the monster, they tried to go around it by huddling against the edge of the wall. Just at this moment, Fan Xiao noticed something. He informed the others that there was no need for them to go deeper into the subway since he had already found the map. Standing beside the map, Fan Xiao began to look at it. He was surprised that the map showed the entirety of Weibei City. Soon they left the subway, going up to the surface. The girl asked if the guy had really memorized the map after looking at it for about a minute. The guy admitted that he actually had an unconscious memory. After returning from the subway, he began to redraw the map of the city he had seen on the subway. The girl was shocked because she herself didn't remember much. But what the guy drew was exactly the same as what she had memorized. Just at that moment, the others returned to the subway station. The college student was once that everyone else was fine. However, the older sister wasn't willing to leave things like that. She stated that everyone needed to work together, helping each other, for the sake of completing the dungeon's task. The others had retreated as soon as they encountered danger, so she felt that the others had no place on the team. The middle-aged man was outraged. He stated that he didn't go down to the subway because he felt it was dangerous, so he thought that was a sufficient excuse. The girl, on the other hand, did not have enough excuses for the man, so she thought that since the man did not go down to the subway, he did not need a map of the city. The middle-aged man thought that he had gained the support of the others, so he thought that the others also disagreed like her. However, the hooded guy stepped forward and apologized that he had done wrong earlier, and even promised to fully cooperate in solving their common problem. The frail woman also apologized for being so scared that she couldn't go with the others. The college student also apologized for his cowardice as he had not encountered something like this before, but he promised to fully cooperate in the future. The older sister inquired if the middle-aged man had anything to say. In the end, he accepted defeat and apologized, although deep down he harbored a grudge and was going to straighten out the girl in the future. Fan Xiao finished drawing the map and told the others to stop making a fuss, because it wasn't even clear yet if they would be able to get out of the city alive. He had 2 maps, so he suggested splitting into groups. The college student was scared when he heard that they had to split up, because in horror movies, when people split up, they were bound to die. Fan Xiao didn't pay attention to his words. He said that there were 3 subway stations in Weibei, so it was pointless for everyone to go to each one together, and it would be more efficient to split into 3 groups. The college student didn't understand how they should split up. The sisters decided to go look around the East Station. The middle-aged man also noticed that he was interested in the East Station. The girl, on the other hand, told him to go elsewhere. The man was thrilled because he was going where he wanted to go, and the girl wasn't deciding anything. Things quickly escalated into an argument. The executive did not stand by and asked what the man was up to. The man stated that he just wanted to go to the station he wanted to go to. However, his plans were not destined to come true, as Fan Xiao stated that in that case, he would also go to the east with them. The man was even a bit startled as he tried to understand what the guy wanted to do with such a move. Fan Xiao stated that their group didn't need the map since he had memorized everything, so the other 2 teams would each take a map. Since the guy went with the girls and the man, executive figured there shouldn't be a problem on that team. The executive noted that since he and the hooded guy were the most senior, they should each lead the remaining squads. The hooded guy was going to head north. A frail woman decided to join the hooded guy. With executive also decided to go a college student, he wanted to show himself from the best side in the search work. The man does not worry at all about the fact that all his rotten gut is visible to everyone else, and it is literally written on his forehead what he is up to. Which teams will be able to come back as a full team? Which team will have someone eaten? The 2 sisters, Fan Xiao and the middle-aged man, headed out to inspect the eastern station. Looking at the girls' backs, the middle-aged man was extremely dissatisfied with the situation. He had even already started to imagine his perverted fantasies of the girls apologizing to him soon. He was ecstatic, fantasizing about it, because he was going to do such a thing in reality. He wanted the girls, who had previously behaved so brazenly in front of him, to become submissive to him afterward. Fan Xiao suddenly approached him and snapped him out of his fantasy. He put his hand on the man's shoulder and asked what the man was thinking about. Fan Xiao immediately noticed that both sisters must be very attractive and seductive. The man was even afraid that it was as if Fan Xiao had read his mind. so he pretended not to understand what Fan Xiao was saying. The guy is not that stupid, so he immediately told the man not to pretend. Fan Xiao noticed that the girls were so young, and the man probably wants to eat them. Seeing Fan Xiao's behavior, the man got excited that the guy was also eating people. In the end, Fan Xiao happily admitted that he had to pretend when surrounded by people, but now no one would be able to ambush him. He even said that with his uncontrollable appetite, he could not take it anymore. Naturally, everything he said was a lie. The man was glad to meet someone as evolved as himself. He admitted that if he hadn't held back, he would have pounced on the girls long ago. The mere thought of it made him angry. He didn't understand why his appetite hadn't waned after becoming a beta player, unlike those who weren't like him and Guy. The man was angry that others had talents, and those like him had nothing of the sort. Even the hard-earned talents of animals were gone after he decided to eat the man. The only improvement after he decided to eat a human was an increase in size. He was even sad to think what would happen if that wasn't there as well. Fan Xiao was only keeping the conversation going. Because the man was so chatty, Fan Xiao was able to find out that evolved cannibals surpassed ordinary evolved in physical terms. Fan Xiao decided to ask the man how many animal powers he had acquired. He confessed that he had gained 5 abilities but lost all of them. The man was very surprised to hear about 5 abilities. He thought that the maximum he could get was 3. In the past, he had eaten a cat and a dog, and then he ate a pig. Because of that, the mutation happened too fast, so he almost lost his mind. So he started attacking people. That's why the man was so much surprised and couldn't even believe that the guy had eaten 5 kinds of animals. Suddenly, the older sister abruptly turned around to them and wondered what they were talking about. She was shocked that they ate humans, and the younger sister was scared because of what she heard. Fan Xiao didn't fight back, instead suggesting that the man take 1 girl each. He reported that he liked the older one, so he asked the man to keep her for him. The man immediately agreed, but asked that the guy take his time eating her. At the same moment, the man swelled up like the Hulk, turning into a mountain of muscle. Drool flowed from his mouth as he stated that he wanted to have fun with the girls first. The giant-sized man said that if the girls cooperated, they would be less likely to get hurt. The girl asked the others to think carefully, for if they pounced on them, they would not be able to explain themselves to the others when they return to the shelter. For then they will be surrounded and will not be able to get good results. The man hesitated, not knowing what to do after the girl's words. However, Fan Xiao asked the man not to think about it, because after they dealt with the girls, they would just blame it on the monsters. He even came up with a plan that they would tell the others that they had accidentally woken up a monster during their search and it had dragged them away. Fan Xiao reminded the others that they were all complete strangers to each other. Therefore, he didn't understand why the man suddenly thought that the others would attack them because of the 2 dead girls. The guy thought even the very thought of that was incredibly ridiculous. The man was delighted, thinking the guy was incredibly smart. The girl asked her younger sister Baiji to run and call someone for help while she held the others back. Fan Xiao was originally right that the doll in the girl's hands was definitely not simple. The girl immediately used the doll to attack the man. The man was even surprised and thought the girl was cheeky because she somehow thought that she could hold them off. He tried to attack the doll, but it turned out that the girl could control the doll and the doll dodged the man's blow. The doll then delivered a kick to the man's left eye, splitting his eyebrow. Baiji was too scared and did not quite know what to do. However, her sister told her to run again and bring someone to help her. After hitting the doll like that, the man became furious and tore the doll apart in a rage. He began to insult the girl, stating that she would still regret coming into the world. The girl did not at all expect her doll to be dealt with so easily, but at the same moment the man grabbed her by the throat with his hand. He lifted the girl above his head, telling the girl to watch him deal with them. However, at that moment, someone stabbed him in the back with a thin iron bar. The man only had time to turn around to see that he had been pierced by Fan Xiao's iron rod. At the same moment, the man fell to the pavement and died, and the girl also fell to the pavement. She tried to cough up after the man's grip. Her younger sister immediately ran over to her, worried for her. At the same moment, the game reported that player Seal had destroyed player King of the World. According to the game rules, a Seal player could inherit King of the World items. The game then began retrieving and inheriting items. Moments later, the game reported that the King of the World player had no items, so the inheritance failed. Fan Xiao disappointedly complained that the man didn't have any items. The girl was surprised that Fang Xiao appeared not to be an ally of the man, and that he seemed to be just pulling information out of the man. He even praised the girl that her thinking had changed rather quickly. She wondered when Fan Xiao had gotten suspicious about who the man really was. Baiji didn't understand why her sister started a conversation with such a topic. She thought that acting any other way would scare the cannibal away, and then there would be no way to sneak up on him unnoticed as the guy had done. Fan Xiao praised Baiji, reminding them that he did not know the number of players who were cannibals, so he had to act blindly. The guy admitted that he immediately realized that the cannibals wouldn't miss such a chance to start a fire. He even explained that before he exposed the man, the girls were also under suspicion. Baiji couldn't believe what she had just heard, and she felt sick just at the thought that someone could be a cannibal. After this conversation, the girl decided to formally introduce herself. Her name was Lu Xining, and her younger sister's name was Lu Baiji. The guy, however, introduced himself again as Fan Jiangqiang, which means standard of strength, so the girl, realizing that he didn't give his real name, decided that the guy might as well not give a name. Xining wondered if the guy had originally suggested splitting into teams because he wanted to create new opportunities for players who were cannibals to make a mistake. Fan Xiao only pointed out that if they hadn't split into teams, then the cannibals wouldn't have shown their fangs then. He felt that it would do no one any good to have a time bomb hidden in a team, because such an option was a common-sense defense against the bandits. Baiji was surprised to realize that the guy was implying that besides the man among the players, there might be other players who are cannibals. The first thing Fan Xiao wanted to do was to head in the direction of the hooded guy and the fragile woman. The girls were surprised that the guy called the other players by the signs, hooded guy and fragile woman. He admitted that he suspected that either or both of them might be cannibals. Xining immediately wondered which of them he suspected more. He only had a hunch, but he had yet to confirm everything. Soon they heard screams and then saw the fragile woman and the hooded guy running towards them. They were screaming and calling for help, because each one of them had been attacked by a cannibal. Fan Xiao was even glad that they had arrived in time. The hooded guy and the fragile woman pointed fingers at each other, claiming the other party was a cannibal. Fan Xiao thought that since they called each other cannibals, they should provide some evidence. The hooded guy immediately showed his right hand, reporting that the woman wanted to eat him and bit a piece of flesh off of him. The fragile woman responded by showing her right hand and reporting that the guy was actually a monster and that he had bitten her flesh off. Xining decided that in this situation, the monster bit his own hand the moment he saw them in order to wound himself. Baiji couldn't understand how one could tell the difference between a cannibal and an ordinary person. Fan Xiao thought that since there was a wound on both of them, they would have to rely on intuition. Xining agreed with him, wanting to listen to what the guy was saying. Baiji, on the other hand, felt that he and his sister were being too hasty in this choice. In the end, the guy decided to trust the fragile woman. The hooded guy asked him not to trust the woman because the woman is actually lying and is a monster. Fan Xiao asked the hooded guy to shut up because he can't tell the difference between which one is human. Therefore, he decided that the woman was incredibly beautiful, which meant the hooded guy was after her. The frail woman was happy that the guy believed her, and she even hugged him. Fan Xiao asked the fragile woman not to be afraid of anything because he was on her side. Her face even turned red, and she wanted to inform that she was not some kind of cannibal. However, she was not allowed to finish her words, as Xining pierced her from behind with an iron pipe, and Fan Xiao also pierced her left leg with an iron pipe. The fragile woman was furious that all this time the guy was playing with her. Lu Xining was even surprised that the guy trusted her so much, and after all, she might have just not understood his plan. However, Fan Xiao reminded her that they had already had the experience of fighting a man. So even if he didn't say anything, he was sure that the girl would understand the true purpose of his choice. Xining was tense as she realized that the guy in front of her was not only smart, but also incredibly brave. He didn't even give her any sign, as he believed that she would somehow understand his scheme and do as he wanted. After they had talked enough, Fan Xiao asked the monster to reveal its true form. The fragile woman was not fragile at all now. She had grown to an incredible size, and her entire body was made up of muscles. She threatened to torture everyone to death and then eat them. Fan Xiao immediately noticed that the woman looked much stronger than the man, so he assumed that the woman had eaten another evolved. So he almost instantly told the others to run away in the direction pointed. The woman wasn't about to let go so easily, attacking with her powerful body and trying to lift the asphalt the others were running on. Her efforts caused untold destruction in the city. Xining wondered to Fan Xiao if he had any plan or if they would have to hide somewhere. However, the guy told her not to worry because reinforcements would be arriving soon. Suddenly, Fan Xiao abruptly slowed down and stopped, smiling, for they had all come running to the right place. He stated that the woman had screamed so loudly over and over again that she had completely forgotten to muffle her voice. He even admired the woman's courage. The guy immediately asked the woman if this place looked familiar to her. She only yelled when she realized where she was going, but immediately the guy put his index finger to his mouth, indicating that she should be quieter. Her roar caused monsters to leap out of the subway station, pouncing on the woman and starting to bite her. The woman didn't stop and continued screaming. Now Xining understood why the guy had attacked the woman's leg. She realized that the guy wanted to deprive the woman of her mobility and that the monsters were part of his plan. Fan Xiao admitted that since they had started the battle, such a noise could easily disturb the monsters. And since the monsters were attacking everyone, from this information, the guy realized that the monsters would first attack those who were running slowly. Now all he had to do was wait, watching the fight to reveal the winner between the monsters and the woman. Eventually, he grew tired of waiting, deciding it was time to call it a day. He used his Angel of Slaughter talent. At the same moment, an angel that looked more like a demon appeared in front of him. She was happy that she had been summoned, immediately inquiring about what she had to do. There was no limit to her happiness when she saw the monsters and the monstrified woman. Fan Xiao was also happy to finally put his talent to the test. He ordered Angel of Slaughter to attack the woman. After receiving the order, Angel rushed out with a murderous aura towards the monstrified woman. With just a few swings, Angel instantly destroyed all the monsters that were attacking the woman. Before the monstrified woman could even realize anything, her body had already fallen apart. Xining, Baiji, and the hooded guy were incredibly dumbfounded, not fully understanding what had just happened. The two monsters managed to rush past Angel, and they tried to immediately pounce on the guy. However, at the same moment Angel appeared behind them. She did not want to let them go, because she wanted to play with her toys. In the end, she easily disposed of the pathetic monsters. At the same moment, the game reported that player Seal had destroyed player Little Fairy. According to the game rules, player Seal could inherit Little Fairy's items. The game then began retrieving and inheriting items. Moments later, the game reported that the Little Fairy player had no items, so the Seal player inherited nothing. The guy was disappointed that the second time around he didn't get anything. Angel, meanwhile, kept on being happy. Angel hugged the guy, stating that she still wanted to play. However, Fan Xiao immediately noticed that his physical strength hadn't changed, but spiritually he was very tired. So he realized that Angel of Slaughter was expending spiritual power. Therefore, without thinking for a single second, he told Angel of Slaughter to go back. The still surprised Xining approached the guy and was the first to ask the guy if it was his talent. Fan Xiao only sadly noted that he had awakened a rather cruel talent. He realized that the mental strength of those present was too weak, so they hadn't seen Angel of Slaughter, which was why they looked so shocked. Fan Xiao noticed that the wound on the hooded guy's arm had healed and immediately asked who had such a talent. Baiji confessed that she had a C-rank healing talent. If there are wounds, internal injuries, illnesses, poisoning, or viral diseases, she could heal anyone from all of these thanks to this talent. She could heal a mortal wound in just a few seconds. Fan Xiao immediately inquired if Xining's talent was controlling dolls. Xining didn't hide anything either, informing that she had the talent of an E-ranked puppeteer. She was unfortunate that the puppet she had brought with her to this dungeon had been destroyed, and now she didn't realize if she could find something similar in this city that could be used as a puppet. He wondered if the girl had brought any other items besides the doll. As it turned out, Xining was only able to bring the doll to this dungeon as the game recognized the doll as part of her body. After the talent questions were over, Xining asked the guy what they should do next and if they should continue looking for the station. However, contrary to the original plan, Fan Xiao decided that they needed to meet the others first. In addition, he calmly admitted that he already knew where the space-time door was. The guy in the hood never told me anything about himself, including his talents, if he has any. What if he is actually a cannibal that has never been revealed yet? Fan Xiao feels at home in this dungeon. In addition, while the girls got E-rank and C-rank talents, he got A-rank talent. Fan Xiao's fun adventure is just a matter of watching because wherever he goes, he has good luck. Soon, everyone was back at the original hideout. The student was surprised that the others were so bad at tactics that they had turned a game of exploration into a werewolf chase. He was surprised at the endurance of the others. The executive noted that the point was that there were cannibal players, which meant that this was not good news. Nevertheless, he was glad that this time it was all over thanks to the others, or else the team would have continued to have cannibal monsters lurking around, and ordinary players like them would have been killed. The college student couldn't wait to find out how the others' exploration of the city had progressed. He also wondered how they could find a way out without going to the station. Fan Xiao admitted that he had already gotten the answer on how they could get back. The executive didn't understand what the guy meant by the word return. He pointed at the corpses and newspapers lying nearby and asked the guy if it was related to this case. Lu Baiji even complained a bit that it took a lot of effort to drag the monsters' bodies in, but she still didn't understand what good it all did. Fan Xiao answered in the affirmative to the question voiced by the executive. He explained that all the newspapers were collected from the library and roadside newsstands. The newspapers were important as it was the last news output before the destruction of the city. The executive immediately understood everything, that one could infer from the newspapers what was happening in the city back then. Fan Xiao, on the other hand, asked the executive to take his time as they had both good and bad news right now. He inquired which of the news executive wanted everyone to hear. Without thinking long, the executive decided to find out the bad news first. Fan Xiao then asked them how they felt when they touched the monsters that were now in front of them. In response, he heard about a new kind of monster-sized creature in front of them. Although the monster's strength is greater than theirs, they shouldn't be much stronger. And as it turned out, with some probability, they are able to kill monsters. Monsters are extremely sensitive to sounds and like to sleep in places where there is no light. The hooded guy also pointed out that they should be prepared for such moments before going out to explore. Summarizing their entire speech, Fan Xiao stated that their analysis of the monsters was correct, but they had missed the most important point. Xining joined the conversation, thinking that the monster's physique was similar to a human's. Fan Xiu was slightly surprised that the girl instantly understood what he was getting at. He also pointed out that the monster's physique was similar to humans because they used to be human. The college student and executive were greatly surprised to hear that the monsters used to be human. Fan Xiao noticed that although the monster's appearance was different from humans, the monsters seemed too similar to evolved cannibals. And also the most important thing was that the monster's internal organs were exactly the same as humans. Now the hooded guy understood why Fan Xiao was involved in dissecting monsters. The energetic college student was surprised that humans had become monsters and even called it a biochemical crisis. Fan Xiao, however, corrected him, thinking that it would be more appropriate to call the process an evolutionary crisis. The executive was still trying to figure it out and confirm if he had gotten it right. What Fan Xiao wanted to tell him was that in this world, as well as their world, there were evolved cannibals who had subsequently evolved into similar monsters. Fan Xiao confirmed his fears. He assumed that the world they were currently in was parallel to their world. The collected papers confirmed his theory. Everyone picked up a newspaper to read what was in the news. One article said that in the face of the increasingly serious phenomenon of illegal hunting of stray cats and dogs, the Animal Protection Association had issued a statement of strong condemnation. The reporter did not know whether this was a distortion of human nature or a fall of morality. Another article reported that the mukbang industry had recently discovered a new round of insane internal growth with the appearance of ultra-gluttony stream. The third sensational article reported that a guy was able to lift a car with one hand. All the passers-by were shocked at what they saw. The reporter wondered if humans had already stepped into a new round of evolution. Even a college student reading the newspaper instantly realized that in the future, their world would also be because of cannibalistic evolutionists like the one they were in now. He was so stunned that he refused to believe it. Executive was shocked when he read the articles in the newspaper, realizing what a horrible future awaited their world. Baiji started crying, complaining that she hadn't even managed to find a handsome boyfriend yet. Fan Xiao saw everyone's downcast mood and asked them not to be so pessimistic. He reminded them that they had a question to ask after reading the newspaper. The doomsday denouement that the Weibei Customs newspaper was informing them of might not be so bad, but serve as a kind of warning to them. Xining slightly misunderstood the guy's words of warning, but he calmly smiled back at her. Fan Xiao tried to remind and explain to everyone present that the dungeon was being used as a selection dungeon to tell each player about the future of Evolved. The players selected through the selection process, that is them, could be the key to changing such a sad future. The general mood changed to an upbeat one in an instant. The executive realized what the guy was implying, that they would be the saviors of the future in their world. The college student cheerfully noted that Evolved was moving in the right direction. Xining couldn't hide her smile after noticing that Fan Xiao, with just a few words, was able to revive the fighting spirit in the others. She found him smug, but also quite attractive. Executive decided to inquire about the good news then. According to Fan Xiao, the good news was that he had already found, or rather located, the location of the space-time door. The executive and college student couldn't hide their surprise that Fan Xiao even knew the location of the door. Fan Xiao decided to play a game with them, asking them to try and guess where the door was on their own, given that he had provided them with all the information they needed. The college student admitted, after thinking for a bit, that he wasn't good at solving riddles. The executive noticed that clues for clearing the dungeon were usually hidden in the most dangerous places. And since the monsters were originally human, the most dangerous place should be the place with the most people in Weibei. He thought it could be a school, a large shopping mall, a landmark, a heavily populated area, and so on. The hooded guy added that monsters like to hide in dark places, so maybe the door is in a large underground parking lot of a shopping mall. He also didn't rule out that maybe the place they need is in the sewers. Baiji suggested that the door was in the zoo. Pointing a finger in the girl's direction, Fan Xiao reported that the girl's answer was the closest to the truth. The girl even blushed and hid behind her sister's back. Xining thought that there were only two places, and since it wasn't a zoo, then the place they needed was the oceanarium. After all, the most dangerous place is not where the most monsters are, but where the dungeon boss is. Plus, she reminded them that the game had given them a clue that the dungeon boss refused to let tourists go. Based on the game's clue, it could be understood that the boss would most likely block their exit so they couldn't leave. Therefore, she believed that if there was a place where the door was, it should be there. The college student still didn't understand why a zoo or oceanarium was assumed. The executive at this point seems to have figured it out. He noted that the answer to the college student's question was very simple. They were wrong in their assumptions. In fact, they should not have worried about where the most monsters were located, but should have thought about how humans became monsters. Monsters may have been evolved because they ate too many animals and over-mutated into the animal side, and when there was nothing left to eat, they started going crazy and became what they are now. Xining complimented the men's musings by saying that the most animals in the city are in a zoo or oceanarium. Therefore, based on such a logic chain, an extremely strong dungeon boss should have originated in the zoo or oceanarium. A joyful Fan Xiao agreed with their assumptions, believing that the right place for them was the oceanarium. He then took out a newspaper with an article in it, announcing that a large cannibal monster had been discovered in the city's oceanarium and that the area would be sealed off from now on. Residents of the city were asked to be vigilant. Fan Xiao pointed out that he was holding the latest Weibei city newspaper, which clearly stated that a large-scale evolutionary disaster had occurred in the city's oceanarium, which meant that the boss must have been born at that time. The college student was slightly puzzled that Fan Xiao had already found the right answer a long time ago and had just kept everyone in suspense the whole time. Fan Xiao, on the other hand, reminded the college student that their entire theory was only based on assumptions about the current clues, so they had to go to the oceanarium first to see if the boss was there. And if they couldn't find a door at the oceanarium, they would have to go to the zoo. Executive was already starting to mentally prepare himself, realizing that they were in for a tough battle with the dungeon boss. He only hoped that the dungeon boss wouldn't be too strong. Looking at Fan Xiao, the hooded guy was well aware that the boss would be abnormally strong, but it was unlikely to be stronger than the guy who was standing next to him. Fan Xiao immediately noticed the change in the hooded guy. He immediately noted that the hooded guy was somehow tense and was probably worried about the upcoming battle with the boss. The hooded guy admitted that this was the case, although the hooded guy was actually more worried that Fan Xiao would just start killing people like that. Fan Xiao informed the others that there was no need for them to worry about the boss battle. After all, according to his assumptions, they should not engage in a direct battle with the dungeon boss. A monster that had been hungry for a long time, if faced with food that could be eaten right now and food that required some effort to catch, would obviously choose the first option. Only now did Xining realize why the guy had asked them to bring the monsters' bodies to the hideout. Fan Xiao confirmed her speculation, wanting to give the boss the corpses of other monsters and not engage in a direct fight with the boss. Encouraged by the information the executive received, he wanted to immediately go to the oceanarium and get out of the dungeon as soon as possible. However, contrary to his claims, Fan Xiao crouched down on the floor. He thought that they should regain their strength first and then go to the oceanarium tomorrow. Executive didn't understand why do that. After all, it was only 1 p.m. now, and why wait until tomorrow? However, Fan Xiao was firm in his decision. He said that he was tired and wanted to rest. However, he didn't forbid the others to go, and he wasn't going to stop anyone, but he decided to go to the oceanarium tomorrow. He made this choice because he didn't want to risk messing with the dungeon boss until Angel of Slaughter's cooldown expired. Besides, he had some guesses about the boss. The girls also crouched down on the floor. Xining decided to agree with Guy and go to the oceanarium tomorrow. Baiji, in turn, wished to heed her sister's words. The college student and the hooded guy also decided to go to the oceanarium tomorrow. The hooded guy was well aware that he should grab tightly onto the thighs of the trio of Fan Xiao, Lu Xining, and Lu Baiji. The executive realized that he had no choice, so he also agreed to go to the oceanarium with everyone tomorrow. Meanwhile, at night, there was some frightening rumbling in the city. It was soon dawn in the city. The executive decided that they had already rested enough and that it was time for them to already move out to their destination. However, Fan Xiao wanted to wait a little longer. The executive didn't understand why they needed to wait any longer since it was already dawn. He asked if the guy was planning to stay in the shelter for another day. Besides, he was worried that the longer they waited, the faster their food would run out. Fan Xiao once again insisted that if the executive was in such a hurry, he could go ahead. The guy was well aware that Angel of Slaughter's talent hadn't completely rolled back yet, so he didn't want to put himself at risk unnecessarily. The executive was already getting angry and asked the others what they thought about it. The hooded guy continued to stick to his chosen strategy of staying close to Fan Xiao, so he announced that he agreed with Fan Jiangqiang's opinion. The college student recalled that they had already determined the location of the space-time door, so all they had to do was scout the surroundings. Therefore, he felt that there was no need for them to hurry. The executive was incredibly annoyed by the fact that the others chose to obediently follow the guy. Suddenly, Fan Xiao stood up from the floor to his full height. Xining instantly noticed this change and assumed that the guy's incredible talent had a full day's cooldown. Though a doubt crept into her head that the guy thought that there might be more cannibals among them. She couldn't understand the guy's exact intentions, so she thought he was devious. Fan Xiao stretched his arms and asked the executive not to get angry. He explained that he wasn't stalling on purpose. First, they needed to collect the corpses of the monsters and then move out to scout the area. After a while, the entire evolved group arrived at the oceanarium building, which looked like it was about to be demolished. Baiji couldn't understand what had happened to the local oceanarium since it was in such a state. A plush toy bear was carrying monsters at this time. Xining noted that she was lucky to find another doll, otherwise carrying monster corpses would have taken up a lot of time. However, Executive was still dissatisfied with the guy's mourning behavior. It seemed to him that things would have been a lot easier if someone hadn't insisted on rescheduling and they hadn't gotten off at 3 p.m. Besides, if they didn't make it to dark, they were done for. The college student noticed that there were a lot of dark areas inside the oceanarium building, and they still didn't know if the space-time door was actually there and how dangerous the oceanarium was. Evolved reminded the guy that there was clearly danger because there must be a dungeon boss in the oceanarium. Fan Xiao didn't want to stall any longer and said that they needed to do some reconnaissance first. Once inside the building and started walking down the dark corridor, they quickly noticed that the oceanarium was, and inside, in a terrible condition, which means it had been abandoned for a long time. The college student turned his attention to the walls of the building, finding various photos there. Shining thought that since it was an exhibition center, it meant that all the photos on the walls were of tourists and employees. The girl noticed the guy's attention fixated on one of the photos. She asked him what he was looking at and if he had found any clue. Fan Xiao admitted that the photo looked familiar. In the photo, there was a giant octopus behind the girls. Baiji sadly remarked that before the destruction, the oceanarium was very beautiful. A college student called everyone to come over to him, as he had found a map of the oceanarium. After looking at the map of the oceanarium, they thought they realized where the space-time door was. The college student and the executive decided to run to the location as they needed to arrive at the intended location as soon as possible. Soon they arrived at a huge tank of water with plenty of seats for spectators. A college student shouted loudly and pointed to the door, for they had finally managed to find the door and their guess was correct. Fan Xiao also spotted the door but reminded the others not to rejoice ahead of time. In the same instant, the executive's face was covered in cold sweat. He was frightened as he could hear that there was something very large under the water and that it was most likely the dungeon boss. He explained that he visually looked around and that from the edge of the auditorium to the metal platform on which the door was located, the distance was about 20 meters. They would not be able to jump the 20-meter distance no matter how hard they tried, which meant they only had the option of swimming the distance. The man realized they had a chance, if only the boss would take the bait, and they would swim as hard as they could in the meantime. However, the plan instantly failed, as Baiji could not swim. Executive was shocked that the girl couldn't swim. Shining declared that she would swim together with her sister. Hearing this, Fan Xiao wondered if the girl would be able to control the doll while floating so that the doll would carry her sister through the air. Thinking over the guy's proposal, the girl thought that theoretically she could do it. But there is a nuance, because the puppeteer is guided by the rules of physics. To lift a person into the air, she will have to withstand the weight of 2 people. So the effect of simply transporting the girl through the air would not be as practical as if she simply floated along with her sister. The water provided some buoyancy and mental control of the doll while having to move herself at the same time, so the girl felt that the option suggested by the guy would be too slow. The executive was getting more and more angry. He thought that they had already dealt with the monsters and the girl would only slow them down, so he thought that the girl should deal with her own problem. Shining was adamantly against his decision. She was unwilling to leave her sister behind. Executive became even more angry. He pointed out that the girl was smart and should realize that it was dangerous to take someone who couldn't swim into the water with her. Besides, the man insisted that they had come to a consensus that once they used the monsters' corpses as bait, they would be able to get to the exit of the dungeon. However, at that moment, Fan Xiao came up to him and put his hand on his shoulder, saying that they should take the girls with them. Fan Xiao explained that he wasn't going to be a saint, but if they didn't take the girls with them, then given Shining's explosive nature, Executive would have to make sure that he could sneak in quietly and not disturb the monster while the girl was trying to kill him. Executive was becoming more and more aggressive and less able to contain his fear and the rest of his emotions. Already even Baiji was asking her sister to go ahead while she figured out how to find a way out of her predicament. Shining was unwilling to relent, stating that the guy was right and that no one would leave this place unless they took her little sister with them. A college student tried to intervene, trying to calm the others down. Shining looked sharply at Fan Xiao, wondering what he was up to. The guy walked over to Baiji and took her in his arms, causing Baiji's face to turn completely red. Fan Xiao stated pathosely that abandoning the weak was not always the best option. He was good at swimming, so he could take the girl with him, and Shining would push them with the doll so they could get past the boss. After that, the guy commanded everyone to get ready to jump into the water. Baiji, in her thoughts and with tears in her eyes, thanked the guy. After that, they pushed the monster corpses into the water and waited for the right moment. Almost immediately, giant tentacles emerged from the water and wrapped around the corpses of the monsters. The people were startled when the main boss of the dungeon appeared. Fan Xiao ordered the others to jump into the water now and was the first one to jump into the water with Baiji in his arms. The others heard the guy's order and jumped into the water as well. In the water, the guy ordered the girl to hold her breath with a look, so the girl covered her mouth with both hands. While in the water, Fan Xiao quickly counted everyone and noticed that one person was missing. The executive didn't jump into the water, but rather bided his time. He vilely noted that the guy was right and he understood the guy's choice. However, he was no exception and threw a huge rock into the water. In the same instant, the boss, disturbed by the dropping of the giant rock, swam to the surface. Continuing to hold his breath underwater, Baiji still couldn't understand what had happened. Executive asked him not to blame him for anything. After all, the guy himself had given him inspiration when he stated that as long as someone wanted to cause trouble, everyone wouldn't be able to leave. The hooded guy immediately realized everything, that the executive had decided to sacrifice them all in exchange for his salvation. The college student was shocked that the executive decided to do such a thing. The frightened Baiji didn't know what they should do next. However, they didn't have time to be angry with the executive for long, as giant tentacles reached out of the water and started grabbing them one by one. When one of the tentacles rushed towards Fan Xiao, the guy suddenly drew his sword and chopped off the tentacle. He realized that since they couldn't escape, they would have to finish off the boss. After the guy cut off one tentacle, the monster wailed in pain. Executive realized that now was the best moment to break through in one breath and dived into the water. Noticing that the executive had jumped into the water, the girl wasn't going to let him go so easily after trapping them, so she ordered the bear to attack the man. However, Fan Xiao told her not to be distracted by the executive, but rather to strip the monster of its eye and be quick about it. Shining rushed curses towards the executive as she was unwilling to let him go after such a betrayal. Nevertheless, Shining decided to do the guy's bidding and point the doll towards the boss. The hooded guy also noticed that the college student seemed to have already fainted. Fan Xiao asked the others to give him 1 minute. Baiji once again started complaining that she was useless and that it was all because of her. Complete chaos had begun. The monster was increasingly entangling the girl with its tentacles. She managed to capture the monster's attention, but the guy somehow never did anything about it. Shining realized that with the guy's talent, he should be able to deal with the monster, but the guy seemed to be waiting for something. The executive, meanwhile, sailed confidently toward the door. He was glad his decision was the right one. He realized that the way to get through the dungeon was to sacrifice the others. Suddenly, a melody reached his ears, and then the man found that he could not move. He noticed that his arms and legs no longer obeyed him. He tried to figure out who was singing the song. At the last moment, it came to him that he was facing the true boss of the dungeon. Executive looked at the beautiful girl in front of him, even blushed. However, in the next moment, the girl opened her giant maw and bit the man's head off. At the same time, another monster tore the girl's doll apart. Shining was already angry because the guy didn't do anything about it. She had already openly asked him that if the guy's talent still hadn't run out of cooldown. Fan Xiao asked the girl not to get angry as he needed some more time. Suddenly, he noticed some bubbling in the water in front of him. He immediately commanded Angel of Slaughter to appear and kill the monster underwater. The guy even pointed with his left hand in the direction of which particular monster to kill. Angel of Slaughter was delighted, as the monster's strong aura was to her liking. However, the mermaid refused to give up so easily. She attacked with Angel of Slaughter's sound wave. Unfortunately for the mermaid, Angel of Slaughter easily broke through her attack and had already launched multiple chopping attacks at the mermaid herself. The tentacle monster had time to notice the mermaid's head separated from the mermaid's body and was sinking to the bottom. The tentacle monster was incredibly furious as the mermaid was everything to him. But at that moment, Fan Xiao appeared and chopped the tentacle monster's tentacles with his sword and freed the others. Fan Xiao then wished the monster to go to hell, thrusting his sword into the monster. From its last strength, the monster tried to attack the guy with its tentacles. But at that moment, Angel of Slaughter appeared and easily chopped the monster's tentacles. After a fight, it was imperative to strike a pompous pose, so Fan Xiao and Angel of Slaughter followed this tradition. The fight was over, the remaining humans were saved, and the monsters were destroyed. The remaining people were happy that they were able to survive the boss encounter. The executive was somehow aggressive, even though he seemed to be almost the calmest before. Fear changes people. The system congratulated the guy for killing the boss. The system also informed him that he would receive an exclusive reward after closing the dungeon. Fan Xiao was finally able to exhale with relief since it was all over. Shining wondered how the guy knew that there was another monster under the water. Fan Xiao confessed that it was just an assumption he had made. He recalled about the photo they had previously seen and that back then the guy had mentioned that the picture seemed familiar to him. So in fact, he had already seen the couple in a newspaper they had looked at before. The newspaper reported that the bodies of the deceased had not been found. Another page of the newspaper cited an incident involving evolved cannibals. Since this incident was related to the oceanarium, the guy gave the incident special attention. The newspaper called the monster a high-risk target. After the man ate most of the inhabitants of the oceanarium, he was missing his hand, so the guy was very impressed by this moment. However, the human monster reported in the newspaper had the abilities of an octopus. If a man eats an octopus, he will be a humanoid octopus. If a human eats a human, then you get a mutant human. So the guy assumed that the person who ate the humans was not the octopus monster, but was another cannibal monster. In fact, that was just his assumptions. But when he saw the picture of the couple in the oceanarium, he realized that his conclusion could most likely be correct. After the guy's words, Shining was extremely displeased. It turns out that the guy had known for a long time that there were actually two monsters and had even deliberately hinted for the traitor to stab them in the back, forcing the traitor to take the initiative. Fan Xiao corrected her words, noting that he had never said such a thing. He didn't force the executive to choose to become a traitor or not. It would certainly be better for him to work together, but executive preferred to choose betrayal. So the guy asked that the blame for the executive's betrayal not be blamed on him. He explained that in such places people reveal their darkest intentions. However, even though he may not call himself fair, he did not want to be seen as selfish. Plus, like he said earlier, if they didn't bring Baiji with them, Shining wouldn't be able to live with the decision. Shining agreed with him that if someone decided to abandon her sister, she would do the same thing. However, Shining believed that despite the other options, she would have known that her sister would have been fine. Fan Xiao did not show the same confidence that Baiji would still be fine in a different outcome. The girl attributed this decision to the fact that her sister had always had good luck. She admitted that this is not the first time her sister has found herself in a desperate situation like the one that happened today. However, Fan Xiao still thought the girl's idea of luck was somewhat ridiculous. He informed her that he had a completely unique idea of luck. The girl decided not to pursue the topic further, wanting to talk about it with the guy later in private. The guy agreed to her suggestion. Now the thoughts crept into his head that his luck was not so remarkable and there were others like him. He should have cleared up the matter as soon as possible. Ever since he had been in this dungeon, he had noticed that his luck was accumulating 10 times faster in the shelter than before. After thinking hard, he came to the conclusion that even if nothing was happening, just staying in this place was already bearing great fruit for his luck. Staying in this place for 2 days, he could accumulate luck in 20 days in the normal world. He wondered if his life was in danger. Would he be able to spend the accumulated luck to pass the dungeon alive? Being in a dungeon was not necessarily a bad experience for him. Nevertheless, he decided that it was time for them to leave this unlucky place already. However, at that moment, he was stopped by Shining, asking him to wait for a while. The guy was at a loss as to what was even going on and why she had called him. Gaining confidence, the girl bowed to the guy, thanking him for helping them pass the test. The others also ran up to him and thanked him for saving them. Baiji confessed that if it wasn't for the guy's help, she would have died. The guy asked the others not to give such solemnity to the whole thing. He also confessed that his name wasn't actually Fan Jiangqiang, but Fan Xiao. Xining was annoyed that the guy had been using a fake name all this time. As they headed for the door, Baiji admitted that Fan Xiao's name seemed familiar to her. Fan Xiao explained that maybe the girl had seen his name in the news. Recently, he had several cases of fighting criminals that had been reported by the mass media. The girl was surprised that the guy was a real hero. Fan Xiao thought that it was a matter of habit, and he didn't want to be some kind of hero at all. Looking at his back, Xining thought about the fact that he was able to find the exact clue in the dungeon and was also able to predict people's intentions and utilize that. She also noted that combined with his strong talent, the guy was able to keep a precise pace. The girl realized that the person in front was quite scary, and it was good that they didn't become enemies. Baiji asked the guy to leave a contact for contact, noting that it wasn't for her at all, and her sister asked that the guy talk to her privately afterward. The guy didn't mind at all leaving a contact for contact, but Xining was surprised at her sister's skill and deception. She grabbed her sister's hand and aimed for the door, noting that if Baiji needed the guy so badly, then Baiji was the one who should have said so rather than bringing her into their conversation. Baiji promised to call the guy. The college student admitted to being jealous of the guy. The hooded guy, on the contrary, thought that one should not only be envious, but also wary. Fan Xiao said goodbye to the guys and walked through the door. The system congratulated the guy for passing the qualifying dungeon. Thanks to his passage, the guy was successfully registered as a player as soon as he passed through the space-time door. Next, the system told the guy a bit about the players. Official players were divided into 3 types: white player, human player, grey player, half-human players, black player, cannibal player. Each type of player is distinguished by the color of the number on their right hand. At the player's option, the number on the hand may be visible to all or hidden. Since the guy has no record of assimilating foreign genes, the system awarded him white player status. After a moment, the guy moved back to his couch. Thanks to this, he realized that there was an automatic return once the task was completed. In addition, he wondered if all the missing items had returned. Furthermore, he noticed that it had only been 4 hours, even though they had been there for several days, which meant that the time in the dungeon was very different from the current time. He was happy to find that the feeling of hunger had finally disappeared. He was so happy that he had finally gotten rid of the bad habit of eating animals. At this moment, a system notification appeared in front of him. The system reported that during the first dungeon, the guy had eliminated 2 black players and 1 grey player, as well as using deduction to use the clues of the space-time door, and even killed the final boss, Singing Mermaid. The dungeon was successfully cleared. Dungeon grade, S. Dungeon reward, 3 space-time tickets, 3 E-rank evolution potions, 3 bottles of E-rank antidote, 3 bottles of E-rank cure potion, 5,000 in-game coins. In addition, he received a reward for killing the final boss. Anemia earring, D-rank item. Fan Xiao first decided to take a look at the reward for killing the boss. He wondered what effect the anemia earring had. As soon as he activated the anemia earring, it immediately appeared on his ear. The system continued its explanations regarding the anemia earring. In that historical period that can no longer be researched, there were rumors that a vampire was madly obsessed with a human girl and gave her one of his earrings. After the girl wore the earring, she discovered that the earring had incredible power. According to the item's description, the wearer of the earring can control their own blood and turn it into a cold weapon for battle. The weapon's power is determined by the amount of blood expended. When the blood weapon pierces a creature's blood vessels, it will fuse with them. At this time, the earring will establish contact with the creature's blood for up to 1 hour, during which time the creature's blood can be freely manipulated. At this moment, Fan Xiao felt the blood in his body boiling, as if the blood could answer his call and could coagulate into a weapon, equivalent to another ability. He felt that this reward was truly good. Also, according to the item explanation, the maximum distance for controlling blood through the air is 50 meters. After that, he decided to look at the evolution potion, so he immediately drank it in a volley. It was just a disposable consumable item. With his current physique, he could already face the cannibal monsters without any problems. The guy then decided to take a look at his player panel. His evolution percentage was 20%. The system reported that the player had advanced to E rank, so the system wondered if the guy wanted to take the chance to upgrade his talent. The system also pointed out to the guy that as an E-ranked player, he was now required to participate in a dungeon trial at least once a month. If the guy doesn't participate in any dungeon trials for more than 3 months, the game will penalize him, and he will also be randomly teleported to a difficult dungeon. It was as if all the pathos had evaporated from him. He was now quietly rejoicing that with 3 bottles of potions, his evolution speed had increased by 11%. He didn't expect players to be able to improve their talent after a rank increase, but now he could refine his Angel of Slaughter talent. Suddenly, someone called his phone. The call was from an unknown number. The guy assumed that the sudden call from an unknown number could be from Baiji, although he didn't deny that it might have something to do with the dungeon. As he answered the phone, he realized that his conspiracy theories were going too far. As soon as he inquired about who was calling him, he heard that it was Lu Xining. She thanked the guy once again, thanking him for making it possible for them to return home safely. Fan Xiao recalled that the girl had already thanked him today, so he was a little confused as to why she was calling him about it. However, the girl reminded the guy that he wanted to know about her sister's good luck. After her words, he only remembered it. Wanting to know what the girl's luck was, he had actually forgotten about it. He was only interested in this topic because if there were people like himself, he should take this matter seriously. Xining told him that the cases of her sister's luck were quite numerous. For example, after Baiji was born, their family became stable financially. Since childhood, Baiji had encountered many different strange occurrences leading to death. All the people around the girl could get hurt, but the girl always remained unharmed. Baiji thought that her sister was already exaggerating this topic. Fan Xiao thought that the girl's luck was too good. The guy thought that then, according to the girl's assumption, a pop-up should have appeared in front of her sister. Xining had absolutely no idea what the guy was even talking about. Fan Xiao decided that it didn't matter. He had already assumed that the girl was as lucky as himself, but that was just his assumption. Xining decided to ask the guy directly what his talent was and if it had anything to do with air control. Fan Xiao quickly figured her out, noting that this was the real purpose of her call to him. He clearly informed the girl that if she wanted to know information about him, there was nothing to talk about. The guy only learns other people's secrets, abilities, and so on. But he's not going to reveal all his secrets in return. Where will the path of this lucky guy lead? And that's all for today. Thank you very much for watching the video. If you would like to see a sequel, please like, subscribe to the channel, and leave your wishes in the comments. You can also subscribe to Telegram to know about new videos. Bye everybody.